Hi, this is Stacy from Isley, and you're listening to From the Music Shed.
Welcome to From the Music Shed, a podcast in which we invite musicians to drop by for conversation and music. Damien Youth has been making music in rural Louisiana for decades, gathering a sizable worldwide cult audience along the way. His material spans multiple genres and defies easy definition. He has fronted many bands through the years, each very different from the preceding, as well as performing uncounted solo shows. His mostly self-recorded material began being distributed through homemade cassette tapes before evolving to the CDR format, and now through online digital sales. Damien has also participated in collaborations with other artists, perhaps most notably with Peter Daltrey of Kaleidoscope and David J. of Bauhaus and Love and Rockets. Today, we make an attempt to scratch the surface of the enigma that is Damien Youth. All right, let's start at the beginning. What was the moment that music captured you, and when did you decide that you wanted to make music too?
I think when music first captured me, I grew up around music. Like I grew up in church, hearing like Christian music, and my father was like really into playing like country music all the time in the house. So I did have exposure to music, but it wasn't a pleasant experience. And I remember taking my radio and my dog out into the woods one day, and I was trying to find something on AM radio, and then I saw a switch on the radio, and it said AM FM. And I took the switch and I pushed it onto FM, and Nights in White Satin by the Moody Blues was playing. And even though now that's kind of campy, it's a campy song, at the time, in the woods as a child, never hearing music like that, it was like I entered another world. And then I saw how powerful music was, and I wanted to adopt that language. I didn't think of it like that at the time. I was just, I want to play music. But
right.
I could see that that's what I was thinking.
Well, do you remember the first song that you wrote, and were the reactions you got to it encouraging at all?
It was. It was really Christian music. It was the only place I had to play. So I would write religious songs, but even though everybody liked my singing, they still thought my lyrics were kind of strange. Like I had a song called Kings of Oblivion. And I remember playing it in church, and everybody was just kind of looking at each other like, what's he singing about? But I was singing about the best part of the Bible, which was the end of the world, And
right.
The Revelations, because the Revelations are very psychedelic by themselves. And to me, that's where the imagery comes from. So I was out there like singing about the end of the world. Never saying the word Jesus. I thought that was too cliche. So I really wasn't singing about Jesus, just about the end of the world. It was fascinating.
Well, see, I find that most Christian music is way too wordy. It's like use a short story to say what you should say in a paragraph. And yeah, I could see how what you were doing would not have.
I didn't want to preach to people. I wanted to take the stories from the Bible that I thought were interesting and put them to music, really, or take that same kind of imagery. To me, the Revelations didn't preach. It was just like this dream, and you can interpret it. And I thought music should be like that. Thought it was a good template for writing lyrics.
Right. Well, part of the legend of Damien Youth are the homemade cassettes you would make of your own material. How did that develop? Was it strictly from necessity, or were you just sharing with your friends and then, it just took off, or what?
I remember getting like just a cheap tape recorder, and I used to just like to interview people more than play music. And I just started developing an interest with recording things. And, back then if you wanted a song, you would like get your radio and put your tape recorder right in front of it. And when the song that they said was coming up that you wanted to own, you would just hit play and record. So that's how I started recording. And then I noticed I was like singing along sometimes with songs that I was recording. And sometimes it sounded like an overdub. So when I started playing music, I would turn on my little tape recorder and record a song. and then take the tape out, put it in my stereo, put another blank tape in my little cassette player, and then play what I just recorded on the big stereo, and then sing along with myself. And I started trying to multi-track like that. And it sounded cool to me at the time. I listen now and it's all hiss. But I became obsessed with the process even more than the song. The song I didn't even really think about at the time. I would just throw chords together and make up words and write them down so I could overdub it. But I loved the process.
And are you completely self-taught musically? Because I know your chord names are not the norm.
Right. And that shocks people, like when I've worked with people and they'll ask me the chords to my songs and I don't know them. And my father, he was like, that's the big bird and that's the little bird. So I have weird names for chords, but I am self-taught. However, I did watch people play. I was around musicians, so I would just see what they were doing and impersonate it. I'm a faker.
What did your holy trinity of Bowie, Beatles, and Barrett mean to you as you honed your songwriting and performing skills? And do they mean something totally different to you now?
They do now, but only because of their own failings and shortcomings. Or development, however you want to look at it.
Sure.
Like I love Hunky Dory. It's the template to a lot of what I do. Or Man Who Sold the World. Those albums, they touched me. And I mean, I've said before, Hunky Dory was like my Bible. It was just a brilliant album.
Right.
But I wasn't going to follow Bowie into his Labyrinth phase or his Let's Dance phase. You know, I understood why he was doing it, but it was always the music. But yeah, all the music that was holy early on to me is still that way. It's still a touchstone. If I'm alone in a room, I can put on Hunky Dory, and it's like the first time I heard it. So yeah, it's still the same. It still has power.
One of the old cassettes and one of the older songs that you had was called The Hermit Years. Can you elaborate on what that means?
The Hermit Years, when I was 15, even though my family says I was 16, my mother accepted a job out of the state, and my sister had already moved away. And so, in essence, my family ran away from home and left me with the house. And I guess I wasn't prepared for the world. I lived a very sheltered life. And so for a couple of years, really young, I lived alone. They would come back and like pay bills. And so I was just this boy who lived in a house, like his parents' house, for 2 years with records and a tape recorder and a guitar. And I refer to that as the hermit years. And I think as I get older, I think when people have their midlife crisis, they go back to their teen years, which consisted of getting a new car and dating girls. But my teen year, when I had my midlife crisis, I wanted to become a recluse again. I wanted to just hide in my room and listen to music and just masturbate to girls, not try to date them.
And how did that evolve into what the Compound was, or is there a step missing somewhere in there?
It did, because then my music started pulling me out. Like I started passing tapes around, and then other musicians were like, we should be in a band with this guy. And so that led to being in bands. Being in bands led to playing in nightclubs. And once I had an audience and I had a house to myself, I can kind of handpick people that I connected with and invite them back to my place for parties. And basically what I did was I filled my house up with interesting people and just had them pay my bills for me. I mean, I didn't charge them rent. They were living cheaper than they'd live anywhere else.
Sure.
But they took care of themselves and they took care of my bills. I didn't have any bills to pay. And we just found a way to create our own little community inside of this small little town. Of course, the town viewed us as like some religious cult or something, but there was no one religious out there.
Yeah, I know people from there that still refer to you as Scary Bob.
Yeah, I get that sometimes, or Goth Bob, or all sorts of things.
What was the first band that actually performed out. I mean, I have a list that you gave me a long time ago of all the bands, all the way down to Harvest, which was when you were, 14 or something?
Right.
Yeah. But what was the one that actually first performed out?
I think the first band was Crash Palace, and our first gig was opening up for the Phantoms with Rick Slave, and it was in Baton Rouge, and it just happened to fall on my wedding night. So I was getting married that same day, and I had to rush off. Normally I guess you rush off to the honeymoon, but
right.
We'd gotten that out of the way to the point where the marriage was necessary. And
Yeah.
At the time, that's how it was viewed. Now it'd be like, sorry, what do I owe you? But but at the time, we thought we were in love, and we got married, and then I was like, I have a gig, and then I ran and played my first show, and I think we did pretty good. I mean, people liked us and booked us, asked us to come back and headline after our first shows.
And how long did Crash Palace go on?
Crash Palace was together for about maybe 5 months. And our guitar player, Chris Cologne, who was probably really like the Syd Barrett in our group, he was really odd. And he would like break strings on stage, and instead of faking his way through the song, he would just throw his guitar and sit on his amp and smoke a cigarette and just look at people. And he would always, the thing is it wasn't a one-time thing, it was every show. He couldn't make it through. He'd get too excited and just rip his guitar apart. And so when he left, he actually was trying to kick me out. We had a band meeting, and he was like, I talked to the other guys, and you're out of the band. And I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm going to have to form a new band then, right? And he was like, do whatever you want. I was like, well, I'm going to form a band. And I looked around the room at the band meeting. I was like, who wants to join? And everyone was like, yeah, us. And he was like, fuck you guys.
So was that Insect Chandelier?
And then that turned into Insect Chandelier.
Well, my list has another one between Crash Palace and Insect Chandelier, Oracle.
Yeah. But sometimes like I would call a band something, and it would only last a couple of shows, or maybe a cassette tape. Like, I don't know if you remember, but Featherbox got changed to Gel.
No.
For a little while. We were like Featherbox, and then there was a band called Candlebox that came out, and we were like, oh no.
Oh, right, yeah.
We're going to get associated with that. And I was like, we should have like a small name, like one of these cool 3-letter names. And we came up with Gel and big bubble letters. Mm-hmm. But it didn't stick. Didn't stick with us. But yeah, Oracle, I think, was just a recording. It was a recording project. It was a one night only. Now I'm remembering it. It was. They used to have open mic at Mariners, and we went there, and a bunch of really good musicians showed up, and we just improvised that night, and we recorded the show, and I wanted to share it with people, but I didn't know what to call it, so we just called it Oracle, mm-hmm. And that's what that was.
I was in a place that I could not name. I was on my own, lost upon my way to a place I'd never seen before. And the path was long and the moon hung low when I heard a voice on the radio, golden sigh of a broke-heart singer. Sometimes a pauper is a poet, sometimes a fool is wise, sometimes the joker seems to know it. He was in a place that he tried to name, just an orphan child in the pouring rain, with a heart so old it was made by angels. in this tower room, writing holy songs that were so beautiful. The devil sang along, his spirit soared above the weeper. Sometimes the blossom breaks its branches, sometimes the angels cry, sometimes your father is a phantom. And I didn't know you before they hung you from your halo. And somehow I knew you couldn't last for long. Safe for song. So if you're in a place that you cannot name, and you're all alone, lost upon your way to a place you've never seen before, if your path seems long and the moon is low, you might hear the voice of some holy ghost. It's the golden sigh of a broke-heart singer. Sometimes the silence is not golden. Sometimes the silence is not golden. No, 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 no. Sometimes the silence is not golden. No, 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 no. Sometimes the silence is not golden.
Insect Chandelier was around for a while, and then it became Strychnine Temple. Is that how that works?
Kind of. Chris Bond wanted to play heavier music, more like the Stooges and Sonic Youth, and he wanted to form another band. And so as a side project, we thought we would do Strychnine Temple. And so, yeah, that's when Eric Donaldson came in on drums. And so, yeah, it was just like two guys from Insect. I think Chris Tucker, actually, our drummer, was on the first two recordings, but then he bailed and went to Invisible Cowboy. And yeah, then Strychnine Temple happened.
So the next step in the evolution was Burnhead, which also didn't last very long. But to me, those 6 recordings were kind of ahead of their time.
And there's really 8 recordings.
8? Uh-oh.
But 2 I can't find.
Ah.
And I've been looking for them. Because I keep thinking if I find the other 2 recordings, then I'll release like the whole thing. I'll clean it up and make it available. But I feel like I can't do that until I find those 2 songs.
Right.
But it really wasn't associated with Strychnine. It became that later live, but the initial recording was just Chris Daniels, the guitar player, and Stephen Payne, a keyboard player that we knew. That was he was probably the only guy we knew that was like into electronic music at the time, or industrial music. And we really just wanted to get him because we didn't need a band. He could do so much on his keyboard. And the guitar was heavy, so we didn't worry about coming off techno. And we recorded songs. And then when we started playing live, then the Strychnine guys wanted in, like Eric and Chris Bond. They were like, we want to be part of this. So.
And those shows are kind of legendary.
They actually, yeah, because I think that it actually started with Strychnine Temple. We started, we would go to like the slaughterhouse and get the parts of the animal that they throw away after they ooh. Is it okay if I?
Go right ahead.
Okay, let me turn that off. Student loan. Anyway.
All right.
Sorry about that. But yeah, we would go to the local slaughterhouse and get the eyeballs and stuff like that, like the parts of the animal they throw away. And like I had a cloak, and I would safety pin all the eyeballs on my cloak. And of course, people thought they were fake. I remember one guy coming and grabbing one off my my cloak and putting it in his mouth and chewing around on it. And I was like, it's real, and it's poison if it breaks in your mouth. And he was just spit it across the room. But yeah, we kind of got into the shock thing. But I wanted it to be real. I didn't want to have like fake eyeballs. I wanted to, wear real animal parts. And then like there were a few animal rights people that approached us one time, and I gave them an argument as to why, that I was raising awareness. I was like, the other people in here, it's like the slaughter of animals is silent because they consume the parts that they interact with. Right. But I wear the leftovers, and remind people that animals are being senselessly murdered. And they were like, oh, thank you.
This is the last song, and it's an a cappella piece called The Offering. And then Peabody's up. Bring me an offering, my father's hands are bleeding. Bring me an offering, the time is near at hand. Rise up, unholy hordes, the grave is solemn waiting. Rise up, all thieves and whores, the grave it waits for thee. Mangled, the dead will scream, the semen floods the altar. Burn me in effigy, thy father waits for thee. Rise up, unholy hordes, the grave is solemn waiting. Rise up, all thieves and whores, the grave it waits for thee. The Pope will rise, the beast of revelation. The Pope must die, for my father waits for thee. The Pope claims to be the Christ incarnated. He rose from the sea, the beast of revelations. Bring me an offering, thy father's hands are bleeding. Bring me an offering, thy father waits for thee. Everybody have a good night. Peabody's coming up. Hang on.
But you used to get protested a lot. I have a Featherbox recording where you talked about the people outside.
Yeah.
I mean, and Featherbox was not, to me, that controversial a band.
It wasn't, but it happened because of Strychnine Temple, and then Burnhead. When we did Burnhead, we still kept some of the shock horror, but a friend of mine knew where this church had burned down, and there was the podium left. And he was like, "Do you want that podium?" And I was like, "Yes." And so I think people thought we were mocking church or something, because I would show up, with a podium, and I was to the point where I was doing a lot of acid and I couldn't remember my lyrics. So I would bring my lyrics and lay it out like a big Bible. And so when I was through with the song, I would just like rip the song out. But people thought I was tearing up the Bible. And like we're in the Bible Belt, basically, in that town. And so every place we went, I would personally get banned. It wasn't that my band couldn't play there. It was I as an individual could no longer have drinks in the establishments. Or I couldn't walk on campus. And I was just getting, my rights pissed on.
Right.
And again, that's why the compound. If I can't go to the party, then, you invite the party out to your place.
Right.
But yeah, Featherbox, compared to that, certainly wasn't doing anything shocking. I think our shows were a little more edgy than any recording that we had.
Oh, definitely.
But
definitely.
It was only Remember Me, at the end.
Right.
We didn't. Actually, I guess Julia says I say stuff in there about you don't need religion or we don't need God or whatever. But that would, it was so pretty, people didn't care what I said.
Exactly. You can, as long as the music is sweet, you can say pretty sour things.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, those shows would go on for hours, and we would sit there and we'd drink pitchers of Purple Haze, and we would look forward to Remember Me, because you never knew what you were going to say. And it might have been something really spiritual, but I remember one night the whole rant was about hemorrhoids.
Yeah.
And that was really entertaining, but it was at a show the Freaks did in Hammond where, like, other than the people who were there specifically to see you and the Freaks perform, everybody else was just ignoring you until Remember Me, and then they just gathered around. It's like...
Those shows, I mean, that's why I was saying I don't like playing my area a lot of times. I go some places and play and find that I have an audience there, and it's warm and it surprises me and there's a rapport. But when I play locally, there are people who come to see me because I'm infamous. They don't like me. I'm watching people who don't like me pay money to come and stand in front of me because I might say something about them. And I really don't know why. I've sat and wondered, because if I don't like someone, I won't go, and I certainly won't pay to go.
Right.
But they would actually pay to come and because I might do something and they didn't want to miss it, basically, is what it was.
Well, and it happens too, even with people who aren't familiar with her. It happened to you when the Freaks played the Anne Rice party in 2003, in which you released my recording as an EP.
Yeah.
And there was a guy in the audience who didn't know you from never
Yeah.
heard of you, was trying to heckle you.
Yes.
And I thought you handed it back to him pretty well, but, you know.
Yeah. I don't mind a heckler. In fact, sometimes the heckler makes the show because it gives you the target to really focus on. You don't have to, have some concept of who you despise or loathe. Like, there it is right there. And it's making itself available to you.
Right.
And even asking for it. But that's kind of what the local shows were turning into. And then you've seen me lose it even like by myself.
Yeah.
It was getting to the point where I was getting tired of playing the songs over and over again. And I felt like I was in a trap. So sometimes I felt like if I threw my guitar or made everybody spoon on the floor, do something to make the evening different, then that was the payment to me.
Right.
That was the reward.
Right. Yeah, I got to say that was one of my favorite shows at Carrollton Station. Not the spooning one. I mean, that was cool too, but the one with the drunk girl trying to heckle you the entire time.
Oh, at the Circle Bar.
Yeah, the Circle.
Yeah.
What did I say?
You said Carrollton Station.
Yes, I meant the Circle Bar.
The Circle Bar.
And but suddenly, to the two guys who were sitting with her, who were saying not a word, she just ruined our experience of watching you perform. They suddenly got upset with something you said.
Yes.
And I mean, it was her the whole time.
Right. Well, what it is they're owned by their sex drive. They're going to defend the person that they might have sex with later. It has nothing to do with right or wrong.
Right.
And if she wanted to sit there and heckle me, they would kind of giggle along and because, it's just light-spirited humor and she's a sweet girl and good in bed.
Right.
But they owe me nothing. So, they were not going to say a word. But as soon as I said something to her, they had to race with each other. Who's going to defend her?
Yeah.
And that's how that turned. They wouldn't know me if they saw me walking down the street.
This is true. So back to the bands. Featherbox, I remember, if ever there was one of your bands that would have had radio success, it would have been Featherbox.
Right.
And I don't think that the artistic merit of the material was compromised at all with that. It's just the material a lot of it was very radio friendly. But I never understood how quickly that dissolved. Because y'all were drawing really good crowds, and then for a few months, and all of a sudden, it was just 12 of us again.
Yeah.
And
I watched that happen too.
I never understood.
I think I understood it.
Really?
And this is my take on it.
Okay.
We did that thing where I remember Johnny was pulling a bunch of people from labels to come check us out. And we did this big show at the Howling Wolf. And labels were supposed to come. So all of our fans wanted to come and support us to make sure that the labels saw that we had a huge audience. And I think the night didn't turn out. The show was good. The audience was great. But a lot of the people that committed to coming didn't come. So when nothing happened afterwards, and this is the sad thing about groups of people. I can sit with each one of the people in the audience and they would support me to the end. But as a group, I think once you invest yourself in something and then it doesn't pan out, you quietly move along, Mm-hmm. So I think they just move, when nothing happened from that night, then maybe you'll start, hearing why it didn't happen. Like maybe they shouldn't have did that song. Or, maybe, the keyboard player wasn't good that night or whatever. But I think people can kind of talk themselves out of loving you. And also, when you play a lot in one area, they can always catch you the next time.
True.
And so some nights it was like that. We would go and play to like a few hundred people, and then we would book a show, and a lot of people would want to play with us, and we'd invite them along, and just our girlfriends are out in the audience. And it was like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
So.
Still doing time, but I don't mind waiting. Mind my state of mind. lost from my thoughts, fading in dreams like a ghost forgotten, cut from the frame, gone down the drain, whilst in the rain. But I'm not what you want, but my heart's still in it. Tonight I sleep alone, but I still remember us up in your room, drunk on perfume. The scary little girl with the bright eyes burning, windows of rain, hair daisy chain, the cold city lights and the broad horizon. I did not ever want to leave you in that room of treasure, but I'm not what you need. But if your heart's still in it, now I have to leave. A sweet Lolynia, I'm back on the streets, off to myself, hanging with the band at the Red Door Alley. The old porter called back to the wall, just watching it all. I did not ever want to leave you in that room of treasure, but I'm not what you need. But if your heart's still in it, then wear it on your sleeve. A sweet Lolynia, I'm out on the road, making new foes with telephone Jones. That's the life I'm leading. We're nowhere for long, everyone's wrong. They all know my songs except the ones I'm singing. So please don't sing along. Well, oh no, oh no, no. Please don't sing my songs. Well, oh no, oh no, no. Please don't sing along. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-da. Please don't sing my song. No, no. I did not ever want to leave you in that room of treasure.
Rockin'.